Eagle Auburn family, and welcome back to the E2C Network. This is a place where we get together and we talk about what's going on in the world of the Auburn family spectrum. We're always heavy on the Auburn sports here, but if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. We appreciate you stopping in, whether you're watching live or on the replay. We'll take you however we can get you. Just appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your times to hear what we have to say about everything Auburn, and also hopefully to hear mainly about what you all have to say about the games and things like that. Today's live stream, the main topic is going to be a game breakdown and grading of Auburn football versus UGA. I know it's probably not the most popular topic that we want to break down and grade. Not a lot of good things to probably say from that, but we're going to do it because that's what we do here. We're here for you to share your opinions and your thoughts and your feelings about it too. And we want to hear your grades as well. As has been the case the last couple of these particular live streams, I needed a co-host with me to keep me straight, to keep me, from getting off the rails, and to make sure he keeps me in check with my grades. So I have welcomed back my good friend and yours, Mr. Austin Scott. Austin, welcome to the stream.
Thank you. Good to be back again. Wish I could say I'm super excited about grading this game, but we're all going to get through this together.
And listen, if nothing else, this is a therapy session, right? That's kind of what
exactly right.
I always try to think of it as therapy for myself, therapy for you, therapy for all the Auburn fans out there. And let me just go ahead and say this. Georgia fans, you are more than welcome to be here, but if you have to come over here to brag about your win, it says something about the state of your program that you have to come over here. So let's just go ahead and address that right now. Listen, you won the game. You got it. You beat us. That's all you need to say. Anyway, so we're going to talk everything about that, but just want to go ahead and address that up front because I'm suspecting we're going to have a few rowdy dog fans drop in here. So just everybody get prepared. Just hold on to your butts, as they would say. As you do come into the stream tonight, please make sure you do a couple things for us. Make sure you smash that like button if you enjoy this type of content. Post in the comment section right now if you want to, or if you'd like to, and you feel, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Basically, where you're from, city, state, international, all that stuff. With a War Eagle, want to know who's all here hanging out with us tonight. Even though the headphones are on, it is not an open mic night. It is strictly for our Booster Club members. They have the live stream exclusive link to call in at any point. So we might see some of them like we did last week. So if you want to find out how to be part of the Booster Club, check out the links in the description. And we'll talk about it at some point throughout the rest of the night. Neil, just getting right off the... Here's the sad thing is those grades are probably not going to be very far off in some areas as opposed to others as well. Can I ask this, Austin? Is there anybody that got a solid A, like A minus and A and A plus? Did anybody get that?
No, nobody got it for me.
I can think of one unit that might get it, but we'll talk about that when we get there tonight. Jaden says, Warrior. Jaden, and now I'm going to call you out a little bit if you're going to be like that. It's not as simple as starting TJ Finley. If TJ Finley was the answer, he'd already be in there, and I can promise you of that. Let's see. Corey says, or WDE. Let's see. Dusty's a channel member, Booster Club member and channel member. Thank you, sir. Kevlar from Jacksonville. What the? I'm coming from the. I don't even know. I don't think I need to put that comment up there. That just feels like in the War Dustbuster range. I don't even know what that means. Anyway, this is those weird nights where we have to break down the Georgia game. So you guys share your comments and your questions. We'll bring them up as we have time to and take calls in from the Booster Club if they call in. Austin, just how are you feeling, man? Like, is it the worst time to be an Auburn fan, or how are you feeling about after this Georgia game?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's never the worst time to be an Auburn fan. If you're at that point, then you need to reconsider some priorities there. No, I mean, Georgia's really good, and we're in the first year of a new regime. Of course, I was one who, as the week went on last week, I was getting myself a little more optimistic. It's the Auburn way to kind of tell yourself the good things and figure out where it's going to go well. But overall, I did think it'd be a little closer. We'll get into the grades here, and I think it could have been a little closer. Probably should have been. But No, I mean Georgia's really good this year. I really hope it's not their year, but it looks like it given the state of the SEC right now.
Can I let me address that up front because I think it's a great maybe starting point for this because we're going to get into the whole how and why Auburn performed the way they did. But let's talk about, is Georgia that good? And I know, especially for you Georgia fans, especially those of you that watch the replay on this and don't show up here live, so you can't justify what you're saying, and just kind of because you get a lot of them that want to leave their comments and run away, and not have to face the facts. Anyway, I'm taking way too many shots tonight, Georgia fans.
We're only 5 minutes in.
I might be a little raw. I'm just saying. Anyway, I am not still convinced that Georgia is that good. And hear me on this.
What is that good? What is that good?
Here, I'm going to tell you what Georgia is. Georgia is a solid football team. And what I mean by that is I kind of have this scale in my head of excellent, great, and solid are the three good ones. Solid being that if they take care of business, it is hard to beat them. Not impossible, which Auburn showed at some points in this game. It's not impossible. And great would be you're really going to have to work hard to beat them. It's still possible, but a lot harder. And then excellent being you got to catch the absolute best timing on your part and the worst timing on their part to beat them. They're nowhere near those first two categories, in my opinion. A lot of that has to do with their quarterback. I think it's really, and defense wins championships. It does. And that's the strong point of this Georgia team. Outside of that, I see a lot of areas where, unfortunately, I think they're benefiting from at this moment, lesser than SEC. Let's see what happens by the end of the season. But did I say anything unfair of Georgia? I mean, I'm not saying they're not good. I think they're solid. That's about it right now.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on most fronts there. I think they are solid given their state right now. I think JT Daniels is better than Stetson Bennett. And if he were playing, I'd move them closer to that great echelon. But and that's where I was getting when asking you, what do you mean they're not that good? Like they're not that good they're winning the title this year, or and you hit on it there at the end. I think that they're taking advantage, and credit to them for having a good team this year, taking advantage of a lesser SEC. Like no one else looks at that level with them. I think A&M exposed a lot of that this past weekend as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I think injuries have kept them from being that great team, and Auburn showed that they're not completely invincible, but I think they're definitely the top of the SEC at the moment.
Isn't it funny that of the last two dominant teams that the SEC has had, and I would say LSU of 2019 and supposedly this season Georgia, Auburn's been the only one so far that's able to make a dent in some of their strong points, that being their defense this year. And listen, the dent thing is relative. We were the only ones that scored a rushing touchdown. So it's like, is it really making that much of a dent in a 34-10 win? But anyway, I digress. I want to address this, Anthony, not specifically about Drayshon Miller and Tennyson. If you're not seeing certain players, you need, and I'm not saying this to you, Anthony, but just in general about the questions such as this one and about other players, why are we not seeing so-and-so? You need to take the hint. The players are either not doing enough or the coaches don't think they put the team in a good position to win. And that's, we can sit here all day and say, well, it'd be a lot better if we play this player, X player, or Y player. But you don't know that. We're only operating with quarter of the information, if that. And that's what we kind of have to. But it is frustrating. And I hear you. Like, why are these players we heard so much about not playing, especially in some areas like, oh boy, defensive backs. We'll get to that one. And I agree that Dane said the blown coverages were awful. Let's see here. Just trying to catch up on some other comments in here. We are blessed to have a quarterback that can scramble and make plays, though. Listen, and the thing is for Bo, though, he shouldn't have to do that much. Like, he really shouldn't. I can't imagine how frustrating it is for him to be like, I know I can run. I know I can do this thing, but I don't want to have to. I want to stand in the pocket and throw the ball. Yeah. The problem is you got to have a pocket. There's no pocket. Calm me down. I'm already getting started, Austin. Calm me down.
I think, yeah. And I think you hit on it. When you're not seeing players, and especially in certain positions, it's hard. And we'll get to talking about the secondary and the receivers, which I'm sure is where everyone wants to go there. But it's tough, and I think we're really seeing a lack of depth for Auburn
Yep.
that a lot of people can't quite grasp right now.
Yeah. So I think a good thing to remember here is there's been this discussion of, well, they're just that good because of the 4 and 5 stars. And I know that's not what technically what Kevlar's saying here, but there's a lot of people saying this. Like the first question I got when we posted about Drew Bobo committing was, what's his star rating? And I'm like, stars don't matter. They don't. They are just arbitrary ratings that people who sit behind a computer like me give to kids just based on their own assumptions. Now, most of these people who do this have been watching the sport and doing this type of thing for many years, so you think they get good at it. But how many times do they miss? So I do think that getting Bobo's son is a good thing because it was a battle between us and Georgia. And I don't know if South Carolina was in that race or not, but I think that's a good thing for us. And you would think we would have the leg up because Bobo's here for now. Maybe we'll talk about that coming up in a little bit. But there's also been some other discussion about that. Yeah, how tall was that tight end that Georgia had, Austin? I mean, I felt like he was like 7 feet tall.
Gosh, he was huge, and Rogers seemed to get put on him a lot, which Rogers a great corner, but gosh, he's just not the tallest guy, and it hurt him at points. But yeah, I was shocked at how fast he was for how big he was as well.
Good perspective here from Dusty. You can have a big weekend and other facets of a program than just the wins and losses here. Can you imagine what recruits took away from this game? That if we're going to talk about something good, wow, that atmosphere was insane. Austin, were you at the game? I can't remember.
Yes, I was. Yeah, it was awesome. I was talking to some friends about it because we were seeing the recruiting section filled up very quickly, and it got a lot of headlines all week up leading up till the game. But yeah, we were talking. I was like, I'm not even sure Bryan Harsin and some of these new guys on staff know what this atmosphere is going to be like because they've never been a part of it. We've had home games with Akron and Alabama State and Georgia State so far. And so I wish it really could have been down in a competitive game for us in the fourth quarter for them to really get to see what it could be as the sun starts to go down. But we'll have a chance, then they'll get to see it, but definitely for recruiting purposes too.
And just imagine, like I turned to the people I was sitting next to and I said this. I said, look, nothing's going to top the 2013 Iron Bowl atmosphere because I mean it was when I say people say electricity in the air, I literally could feel it. Like
Yeah.
then I camped outside the gates to get in the student section, even though I wasn't a student for that game. That's how incredible that weekend was. But this kind of got up towards that feeling for me, just especially when you got in the stadium. If you're a recruit and you don't get pumped seeing the head basketball coach with his players in the football stadium ripping their shirts off and just going ballistic. And oh, by the way, Cam Newton jumps up in the stands with them just to top things off. I mean,
that's right.
wow. Things just went from it was like we started here and we instantly went up like that all of a sudden.
It was one of those weekends where and I mean it's aside from football, but it was one of those weekends where it was like this is what we were wanting to get back to in terms of everything else on in the world and getting back to full SEC stadium.
Right.
And for me, it was one of those times where it was like, all right, like we might be here, like it might be back to normal as best we can right now. So I was just so glad to just see that kind of atmosphere and escape for a little while in one of our favorite places.
Yeah. We got debate going on whether it was a 6'3" or 6'7" tight end. It's the 6'7" one, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Hey, it doesn't matter. He played like a 6'7", even if he was a 6'3". Anyway, all right. So I think we've, I wanted to make sure we talked about some of the good things of this weekend, and that was some of the good things there. I think the first drive of the game, and honestly, the first quarter for a lot of it showed a lot of promise. And in the first half, I would say, what was the score at halftime, Austin? Wasn't it help me.
17-3?
Was it 17-3 or was it 7? It was 17-3 because we didn't get the tank touchdown to like the end of the third quarter.
Right.
But yeah, I think there was some promise, even with that deficit, the fact that the defense kind of bent but didn't break in a lot of areas, even though they broke later. You can look at it and slice it up any way you want to, but yeah. Dusty says the O-line recruits are coming. Well, you would think so. If let me just say this publicly for all the recruits out there, the offensive linemen, if you want a place that you can start, come here. And I want to be clear on this. I am not calling out a particular offensive lineman. I am calling them out as a unit, and this is the problem. They have, and we've had debates, Austin and myself and many others within our E2C network contributors group about this very subject. Some of us feel that they're doing a better job passing coverage, and some of us don't. I particularly think that they are okay improvement wise in passing defense, pass blocking, but the run game is just like diminishing any improvements that they would make there. So and someone said it earlier, it truly was a game of trenches. And that's what I said it was going to be, a game of trenches and inches. If you cannot win that, you will not win the game. Period. Over, said and done. Neil says AU got down to the end zone several times and could not capitalize. Well, same story, different verse, or same song, different verse, I guess is the phrase for many, many times now. Darius Clemens starts day one if we can pull him away from the West Coast, but he's a wide receiver, right? That's who he's talking about. I think Darius Clemens is a wide receiver. Yeah, so we could talk about recruits and stuff a different day, but let's talk about this game and our grades for this. And I think we're going to have maybe some interesting discussion on this part. So again, as you guys are here, get in the stream, make sure you smash that like button. If you can, share it out on social media, invite some people to join the discussion, even though I know most people are hiding from this type of conversation right now. Let's start with the offense, and we're going to go individually and by each unit, and then we'll give an offensive total grade at the end of this thing. So let's just start with the quarterbacks. Austin, I'm going to let you kick things off because I don't want to.
Yeah, thanks. I said B- for the quarterbacks. There's, quarterbacks are the hottest topic, especially with Auburn fans, on who should play, who should start. I thought, I'm everyone who's been on here before knows I don't think the quarterback is anywhere close to the main issue. But I thought Bo Nix did a really admirable job, given with what he could. There about 7 or 8 drops is what was recorded. And we'll get into wide receivers, but his completion percentage wasn't great. You factor in those kind of things, and it looks a lot better. And so there were not a lot of things I thought Bo Nix could have done other than with what he had. And so I'm gonna give it a B- for Bo. I think he played his heart out, and it was a matter of time before the running around really wasn't going to help. And I'm not saying he shouldn't have. He didn't have a choice in a lot of instances. Yeah, I think he was put in a really hard position. I think you saw his frustration after the game with whether it was he was battling guys dropping the ball or having to leave the pocket early, or even the refs. So I give Bo and the quarterback room a B-.
Do we agree that really TJ doesn't factor into this because he came in garbage time? No, I mean, the reason I say that is not that he's not important, but I would hate for anything wrong he did to factor into this discussion, but also anything good that he did to help the situation out for Bo, in terms of our honesty about Bo's grade.
Yeah.
I just don't think that there's enough of a importance in this particular game that he factors heavily into this decision. So I will be honest with you. When I was thinking about my grade for quarterbacks, I was thinking C+. And I'm a big Bo advocate and defender. And, I think, honestly, as I sat back and really looked at some of these situations, I think B- is a very fair grade. So I'm going to, unfortunately, not differ from you very much on this one. So that's kind of boring. But I do think Bo did about everything he could. There were a few missed reads. And I saw some instances, in my opinion, where some of the things Bo has done wrong in the past, leaving the pocket, or if there is a pocket, too early. I saw some of those moments, but it was in response to just getting nailed or having to run away on the previous play. So it's kind of like, do you fault him for that? But there is this balance between trusting your offensive lineman and staying in that pocket and trying to make a play with your feet. And I think he's worked his hardest to walk that line, but we're getting into dangerous territory halfway through the season where he's going to try to do that more because he's not trusting them.
He has no choice. Yeah.
He has no choice, but at the same time, he's the quarterback, and you got to find a way to trust. And, maybe what wakes them up is watching him get taken down a couple of times. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get to offensive linemen just a second. You know what? We should save them for last because the refs didn't cause the loss. Did we, David? I don't think we said that, or anybody. I don't know if you were saying that we said that, but no,
that's not how I meant it. If that's how it was taken,
the refs did not cause this.
Could have caused some reasons to keep it closer and early on, but no, definitely did not cause the loss.
They did. Referees should never factor into the result of the game, and that call on us earlier and then the missed pass interference in the thing were big momentum shifters.
Agreed.
And you don't know what happens at that moment. If Auburn scores that touchdown, they're still only down by 2 touchdowns, and that can turn on a dime. We've seen that already this season with Auburn and Georgia State. Let's see here. Bo might be getting ready for a ticket for the Gus bus if he doesn't get some help. I don't know. I think Bo is an Auburn guy, wants to stay here. And I don't know that he wants to go switch offenses again, but it is funny to think about. All right, Anthony, you did ask this earlier. Do you think that Bo is best? Do you guys think this is the best Bo that we as AU fans are going to get, or can he improve? How do you guys feel about Davis? So you asked this twice. So you're obviously a very big Demetrius Davis guy. And this is me kind of reading into your question, so forgive me if I'm reading too much. That sounds like someone who wants to win now. And I get that, and I want that too. But you have to think long-term for success. Demetrius, I think is actually how you pronounce it. He is the quarterback of the future of the future. In my opinion, TJ is the quarterback of the future. And then my opinion, this is Bo's last year, regardless of how he does. Because if you look at he just got engaged. I think he's probably done with the hoops that Auburn fans make him jump through. I think this is his last year. So this means that it's probably TJ, if he can hold out and wait his turn, he's the guy next year, maybe 2 years. And that means Demetrius Davis can have his redshirt year this year and then 2 more years behind TJ to learn. And he's a junior coming in here. And then you've got the Alabama scenario where they have quarterbacks every 2 years, but they're ready. They're not being forced into situations that are tough for them because they've been through it a lot. Demetrius Davis is a great looking talent, but we've seen great looking talent before remember, the grass is always greener on the other side. Bo has the talent and the skill to make this team better than it actually is. He just needs a little help. That's my long-winded answer to that, I guess. So I would prefer to see Davis on the bench, learning, growing, becoming the quarterback of the future, as opposed to putting him in there now. Now, he can play. How many games, Austin, can they play before they lose their eligibility for a year?
I think it's 4. Right. 4. You can get into 4.
I would bet that we got 6 games left. Well, you got 2 more games, and then he could play the last 4 of the season. Well, then you've got bowl games and stuff like that, assuming if we, make all that kind of stuff. By the way, we're not even going to have time to discuss this tonight. Do you all realize that there's still a lot of season left for Auburn, and Auburn's tied for first in the West? Let that sink in for a second. The best possible scenario of losses happened this year. If you're going to take 2 losses, the best 2 happened. So just think about it for that. All right, I've been long-winded enough. We'll get to some of your other comments and stuff here, but let's move on and grade running backs. This is tough. It's tough, Austin. I don't know how to be fair, but also I think they need some critique. Is Tank hurt? Is it just the offensive line? Is it the scheme? I don't know. It's just not working. Honestly, I've got to, just because there's no production, I've got to give them a C+ because it's not like they weren't out there trying. I think that it's fair to say that they got an average grade because they got something out of it, and obviously Tank got a touchdown. But I just don't really know where to go with this. You got any ideas on how to grade running backs?
Yeah, I wrote down a C, and I was debating. I was in the C minus to C range, because it's just I was trying to figure out where they lie with my expectations. Georgia's run defense has been incredible all year, and we knew that going in. With Tank only carrying 10 times for 28 yards, Hunter 5 times for 18 yards. It just wasn't going to be a very productive day on the ground from the onset. If that had kicked in early, Auburn would have been really set up for well. But you're right; they got the touchdown. Even on that, Tank was stuffed inside, had to bounce it out and make something of it to get into the end zone. I think also the critique part that I have in there is we tried those swing passes out to the running backs a lot, and
Too
those
many
just weren't
times.
too many times. And I don't know if that's because they don't want to go inside and trust the O-line to open up a hole, or that's supposed to be an easy catch instead of throwing it downfield for the receivers. But Shivers, that hits him in the hands, and it turns into Georgia's first score of the day.
Yeah.
So it was a C minus for me, I think. And but it matches up with I knew they wouldn't have a whole lot of. I hoped they would, but I knew they wouldn't have a whole lot of success, especially inside the tackles on the ground.
Yeah. The thing for this with me, and what I'm about to say is going to sound again like we're going to get to the offensive line in a second here, but last year the offensive line was basically the same, right? And minus maybe one position. I think we've had kind of a changeover. I think it was right guard. Anyway, one guard position I think just changed over to a sophomore, but basically the same unit. And you would think even with the change in position there that they would have gotten better this year. Remember last year, they were not good either. And Tank was still breaking tackles and finding ways to make things happen. And that's not happening this year. Is it because he's hurt or there's something just not quite right? But then you saw it happen with Jarquez, who's been just bursting onto the scene this season. So at some point, to be fair, we can, and I'm all about being very critical about the offensive line play, but you kind of have to start questioning what's going wrong with the running backs too, because we saw Tank last year making things happen with what you would assume was much less of a seasoned offensive line. So that's kind of why I'm a little bit more, I guess, honest about the running backs, because normally I would lean, well, it's not really their fault, so I'll just give them a B. But I got to say, look, y'all know what you're working with.
Right.
You got to figure out a way to make it happen. Don't drop balls when they're thrown out to you in the flats. My boy Shivers, that's part of my core group right there. I was very upset with him when that happened. got very upset in the stands when that happened. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to grade it either way. Larry says, hard to run when there's no push. We led Georgia in the first half rushing, and then, boy, did the floodgates open for Georgia.
First drive.
Anthony asked, do we think that Tank is hurt? We've talked about this so much, and I've heard yes. I've heard no. I've heard maybe. Like I cannot get someone to tell me, is there something wrong with Tank? I mean, Austin, do you have any change of opinion since we last talked about it?
Not entirely. No. I mean, Bryan Harsin has said he's not, and you can say, well, of course he's going to say that all you want, but he said he's not. Tank has not led anyone to believe that he is publicly or said anything like that. I don't think he's fully focused, and I'm not quite sure why.
He's not having fun.
Well played. Well played. But I don't know. I thought he seemed more active on Saturday than I'd seen in the last few games. But there's still, when the holes are there, which is very big emphasis on when the holes are there, he's not hitting them. And I don't know if it's a similar thing to Bo is leaving the pocket too early because he doesn't trust them. Does Tank not trust them to open the hole? But he's not hitting them. And I think that's something maybe call it youth. Last year he was hitting them, and that's all he knew to trust it. Probably because he had a nice O-line back at Callaway High School. But I don't think he's fully active and is invested. I think that could be why you've seen Jarquez have a little more success similar to he did last year. But so yeah, I'm in a complete agreement with you on they need to own up to their faults just as much, whether there's the bad O line or not. But I'm not under the full assumption he's hurt in any physical manner.
Yeah. And I kind of like what you said there. You kind of referencing back to what I said about Bo. Yes, it's not his fault that the line's not giving him any help. But at some point, and we say this about Bo, we say this about the running backs, and you can, lump somewhat the wide receiver. No, I guess not really. Anyway, those two groups with the criticism of the offensive line, you have to understand what you're working with. And sometimes you've got to trust and just throw yourself into that situation and give them
Yeah,
opportunities to figure it out.
that's right.
And I think we've reached that point in the season where you're going to have to stand in the pocket and take some hits to make these guys wake up and like, wow. So the guy runs and we can't give him enough time to make the magic happen. He stands in the pocket. We got to do something different. We got to figure this thing out. Running backs, you got to hit the hole that you're supposed to hit and make them give you an avenue. And who knows, maybe it finally just figures out and it works and it gives them a little bit of confidence. You just don't know how that snowball is going to roll over. And part of me feels like that's part of the problem with let's go ahead and use this to move into offensive line and talk about that, since we're kind of using that to transition. So everybody
Sure.
in the chat right now, you can grade the offensive line and we'll get to wide receivers. I know we're getting there. We're getting there. I don't know. Why don't you and I are very similar about the offensive line, but I want to hear what you have to say first about your grade for them.
Yeah, we've been talking about how when they create holes, the running backs have to hit them. When they create a pocket, Tank or Bo has to stay in it. I didn't see a lot of either one on Saturday, as much as I really hoped there would be. But Georgia's defensive line they're very big human beings, and that was the matchup everyone talked about all week, and it really felt like it was going to come down to, and I really think it did. So I gave the offensive line a D. I just thought their defensive line had their way with them most of the day. They had 4 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. I'll admit all day long how I've defended Bo, but I don't think Auburn can get movement down the field unless he does have to run out, just because that pocket seemed to collapse.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll touch on this just with the running backs really quickly. There were times they picked up the blitzes better than I've seen them all year.
Yeah.
When Georgia threw their big linebackers into the holes. And without that, Auburn would have been in even more pain. But
some of those time, I don't know if you said that, the running backs didn't pick up their blocks on that.
That's right.
That's kind of where some of that criticism. So we want to be fair to both sides of that. So go ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, there was it felt like as much as there's been a non-existent pocket with this offensive line in other games, it felt like it was at its ultimatum this past weekend. So I gave him a D.
Dusty, you said you just tried to call in. You are a Booster Club member, so you have access to that thing. Try one more time, my friend. I didn't see you pop up here in our window, and try it one more time and let me know. If not, I'll try to, when Austin's talking, figure out what's going on and see if I can get you a better link or something like that. But try one more time. I'm gonna say for offensive line grade, I'm trying to be fair, but I'm also trying to be honest too. I don't know that I can give them anything higher than a D, and I think they did some things well. You know what? In the sake of fairness, I'm just going to say a flat D. I want to give them a D minus because I'm still very frustrated with them as I've been all season. But I think they had an incredible challenge at their hands. They obviously weren't that ready. Well, not that they weren't ready, but they didn't really handle it in all areas as best as they could have. Like you said, picked up some blitzes better and things like that. And I think that's what's going on here is, like I said, we've reached this critical point where this unit is not doing this job. So now it's forcing the other unit to make mistakes that they shouldn't be making, forcing the other unit to make mistakes. And then it comes all the way back around. So now the offensive line is making mistakes they weren't even making. And so you've got this vicious cycle of everybody not trusting and not doing their job and focus on the one thing that you need to do. Like Harsin talks about, focus on the basic things, the fundamentals. We're at that point. Can we get it Can we get through Arkansas, get the win maybe? We'll talk about that on Wednesday, and get to an off week and figure a lot of these things out and have some heart-to-heart? Hopefully so. Hopefully
so.
Let's see here. I know it's not really related, but he was just asking about how many linemen would we take in this cycle. If I remember correctly, we only got 2 last year. Is that, Austin, does that sound right? I know it wasn't a good year offensive line recruiting.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Because that was one of the
2 or 3.
That was one of the justifications people said for firing Malzahn. But there wasn't a lot of room in terms of open spaces and stuff like that. Now, this year with this group leaving out, lots of room. I would assume, I don't know the exact numbers, but I would say let's get a whole line. I don't care. They can be all 3 stars, but I want them in, working together, figuring it out together, and becoming a unit. And then same thing. You don't have to bring 5 in every year, but then bring a group of 3 in the next season and have them be the backups. And then you bring another group of 5. You need to create that cycle that was ruined by Herb Hand under Malzahn and rebuild that.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I'd take as many as you want. And this is back to, we'll touch. I don't want to get too far into recruiting. I'm like,
I know, but I mean, it's kind of
too much. But with stars, here's my thing: is if you want Auburn to get all the 4 and 5 stars in the world, then you can spend all your time wasting and worrying about that. I want Auburn to get the guys that they want. So if they rank Drew Bobo as he's a 3-star for all these other computer nerds, if they rank Drew Bobo super high on their board and to them he's a 5-star, then that's who I want. And I think that's the case. They wanted Drew Bobo because he's versatile. He can play multiple positions along that line and play them well. And if that's what they want, then that's who I want, because that is going to help us implement Bryan Harsin and Mike Bobo's system the earliest and get their guys in earlier. So I don't care how many stars you have to your name, but if our coaches want you, then I want you.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good perspective on that. Dusty, by the way, quick housekeeping. I resent the link to you personally on Patreon in the Booster Club. So it should have like a message from me over there. So go try that one. If it's not working tonight, it may just be one of those weird internet nights where, much like the offense, it's not working. So Larry, you're getting an amen there from everybody. There you go. I don't like to use the cursing a lot, but I mean, yeah, it's not wrong.
Not wrong.
Listen, Tommy Tuberville was the king of turning 2 stars into 6 stars. Like it doesn't matter about that. I know it's sexy. I know it's fun to talk about the stars and say, I got more of these stars than you. It's fun in the moment, but it doesn't amount to much in the field. You're only as good as the stars that you use on the field. And some 5 stars never use those other 2 stars, and they're just 3 stars. Anyway, enough about the stars. Enough of that. But anyway, let's talk about wide receivers.
Oh.
You want to go first, or you want me to go first? Everybody in the chat, you can go.
You go first. I want to hear your grade, and I want to hear you talk about someone in your core group.
Yes,
because I'm going to talk about them.
Yes, I will. They get an F+ because they did some things, but they still failed.
They did run. I'll give you that. They ran.
Now, and I think I'm going to go and steal it from you. My core group, for those that you said, the guys that I will fight tooth and nail for, and I will be critical of them, but I will fight tooth and nail for, are Bo, Shed, Jackson, and Sean Shivers. Shed, I remember, had at least 1 big drop, maybe 2 big drops. But boy, if that guy doesn't do the little things and continue to block after the play seemed over with at the goal line, Tank doesn't score. So from moments like that, you have to give them something. So it can't just be an F or an F-, but it's still an F. Drops galore. You can look all over the internet. People have done analysis of this and looked at Bo's, QBR and an accuracy percentage. If you gave in half of those, and it skyrockets. I mean, it's just, this is the group, even more than the offensive line. We knew what we had to work with there. We could not have them fail. I'm going to go ahead and let Dusty in, and we'll hang out with Dusty here just a minute, and then we'll let you give your grade too. Awesome. Dusty, what's going on?
How's it going, fellas?
Hey man,
Hey, man.
we're just trying to wade through the mess that is Auburn's offense right now. How
Absolutely,
about
I
you?
understand.
All right, we're talking wide receivers right now. You want to give your live grade of that? Uh-oh, got a little frozen, I think. Dusty, let me know if you can hear us. It
Yeah.
might be frozen a little bit. That's always the fun, interesting thing with doing live stuff. Dusty, if you can hear us, we're going to let Austin give his thoughts on the wide receivers and his grade, and then as soon as we get you caught back up or back in here, we'll let you talk on that. So go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kyle. I've got an F plus. I just the drops are just unacceptable at this point, and I don't know. You mentioned we've talked about it in our E2C group. We've talked. Everybody in the world's talked about the Fs or the drops for the wide receivers. It's just not acceptable. The one that I can think of exactly and see in my mind was Shedrick's, where it hit him right in the numbers, with nobody 5 yards around him. And I don't know if it's they're worried about getting hit. I don't know if it's the yips and it's in their head and they've thought about other drops. They've thought about what other people are saying. They're worried about losing their spot, but it's just that's what they do. That's why they're on scholarship. That's why they're there. And everybody's seen how much of a difference it's made for Auburn not being able to have that consistent receiver threat. I think Nix is very concerned, and as far as he doesn't know who to throw to, that he can trust. On top of him trying to make the right reads and all that. But yeah, it's an F plus for me, and I don't know quite how you fix it, except that you just. My thing is, people say, and Coach Harsin has said this as well. The guys on the field are the guys performing in practice. My question to that is, what happens when the guys are not performing in the game either?
Yeah.
And so I think that there's some more depth at wide receiver than people would like to admit. I think that that's a little bit different of a position that you can interchange to see if things work. Someone in the chat mentioned Elijah Canyon. Coach Harsin has mentioned he needs to get back in the mix and do some more things right. So he's not exactly who I'm thinking of in this moment, but I think like guys like Javarius Johnson, Malcolm Johnson Jr., Xavion Capers. I don't know what the little things in practice they're not doing right and how much of a gap it's putting between them and the guys who are consistently getting reps. But I would hope that Coach Harsin sees the guys are not getting it done in the game either. And so that it needs to be looked at across the entire board. All right, who is going to perform the best? And if it's still the same guys at practice, then that depth isn't there. And I hate to say it, but just like the O-line, that's going to take a lot of time to get through.
So I think actually, and I remember conversations we were having amongst the E2C people even today about this, and I'll actually admit that I disagree with you a little bit on this.
Sure.
If what Harsin is doing and is not putting the best talent out there because they're not performing in practice, I'm 100% okay with that, even if it costs us games, because this is about longevity. There's so many people that, and I'm not obviously talking about you or anyone in particular, that are focused about the how do we make this happen now? And yes, you want to do that, but that's not how great teams and great programs are built and sustained. They focus on the future. And if you can't get these stars, the guys with the 4 stars, to do the little things in practice, they don't deserve to be on the field. And so frankly, I'm okay with it if that's what's happening. And we don't know, we don't have all the information.
Fair enough.
But to your point, does it reach a point where it's just too much and you got to get something going? I'm not Coach Harsin. I can't say if that is a point I'm willing to get to or not. It's a great food for thought, like discussion point, though. And so that's why I only disagree with you a little slightly on it about that. And, everybody's talking about where's Canyon, where's Capers, where's JJ Evans, where's Malcolm Johnson, all these things. As we said earlier in the stream, if you're not seeing the players, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It's not because they hate them.
And I guess my only slight rebuttal to that would be, and that's where I mentioned the gap. How much of the gap is it that they're dropping balls in practice too? Because then, yeah, that makes total sense. Like If you can't, if the guys who are not catching balls during the game are catching them at practice, and you're not even catching them at practice, then definitely you're not going out there.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if there are certain things, and I want to stress that I'm wondering, because Kyle and I, that's all we can do is wonder. We're not watching film.
Right.
That's right. I want to know, are there things that they just need to get in the game and work out themselves, and that it's in-game experience to help them get better at. But
yeah,
that is not up to me, and I trust the people who are paid a lot of money to make those decisions, and that they know that their job's on the line making those decisions as well.
Right, and you have to remember too, this is year one, so a lot of things aren't going to make sense to us in year one. That the coaches are trying to instill how they want things done. Whether some of us wanted it to be all new and not, we're not going to go down that road tonight. I'm not going to open that Pandora's box. I will say, as I said, as I'm going to state in the Georgia State, are you not entertained? This is what you wanted, some of you. But anyway, okay, I opened the door. I'm closing it. We're not going there tonight. Close the door, Kyle. Shut up. Let's talk about overall grades. And we did talk about it. I just want to make sure Unbeaten Lake knows that we did talk about, I don't know if you were here earlier, about the drops from the running backs, which is why they didn't get a overly great grade from us in this game. Overall, though, what do you think?
For overall offense?
Yes.
Did you mention any tight ends in your wide receivers, or were you just doing wide receivers?
It was kind of overall, and I guess tight ends that's what probably gave me the F+. We're going to let Dusty in here real quick and see if we got a better connection. Dusty, are you there?
Yes, sir. Let's try this again.
There you go.
All right. It looks like it might be a little bit better, sir. So we've made it all the way to overall offensive grade. You want to give some thoughts and a grade on overall and bringing all the units together?
D-.
Okay. D-. Any reasoning behind that, or just any specific things you want to point out?
Yeah, the only reason it's not an F is because your quarterback played his heart out and he did everything he could. I've seen everything between 8 to 12 drops. Obviously he was running for his life half the time or the whole game. He couldn't establish a run game. So the only reason it's not an F is because Bo did everything he could. And I felt like Bobo called a good game. I mean, you're getting the guys open. They're just not catching the ball.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an interesting point though, Dusty, is I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of reached the point, and the funny thing was I was sitting in a Chick-fil-A in Tigertown in Opelika while I was waiting for traffic to die down. And there were two behaving dog fans that were sitting there with me, and we were talking about this. Right. And I looked at them and I said, all right, I need you to be honest with me here, seriously, because y'all have got at least some familiarity with Bobo. Is what we're seeing today, let's forget how well it worked today, is what we're seeing today what we can expect in terms of types of play calling, the amount of run versus passing? And they said, yeah, this is probably what you can expect. And I said, oh boy, that's not going to sit well with many Auburn fans, because we are a run first minded people. Now, that doesn't mean it won't work and won't be successful here. And I think it's not funny, but interesting that you brought up that you thought he called a good game. I'm kind of 50-50 on it, Dusty. I don't necessarily think that it was a great called game, but I don't think it was a bad either. I'm kind of in that 50-50 mode. Do you think it's a fair place to kind of be there right now?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, I'm definitely, long-time Auburn fan. I want to see us establish a run. It's just 3 straight games we haven't done it. And 2 of those games, Georgia State and LSU, you would expect you would have been able to do that. LSU just gave up 330 yards. And if we can't do it this week on an Arkansas team that has given up 300 yards rushing back-to-back weeks, we have a real issue there. So I want to see us on the ball, but the guys just aren't winning the battles. So if anything was suspect with Georgia, it was their secondary. And like Cedric Jackson on that 3rd down, you just got to catch the ball.
Yeah, I will be, like I said, he's one of my boys, but I will be critical of where he needs to be critical, or where we need to be critical. And that's for him. He's an upperclassman guy, a senior. Yeah, he needs to be doing those little things. I understand he's never been past this season a deep ball threat, and we put him in some of those situations. But you should be catching those balls over the middle, those little comeback routes right there on the sideline. And as many people have already pointed out in the chat, our best and most consistent wide receiver thus far this season is Kobe Hudson. And he's had some issues too. Yeah, he really he's it's kind of flip flopped. Where at the beginning of the season, where we saw Shed was the reliable guy, and now Kobe is at least the most reliable guy. So it's interesting. Austin, did you give your grade? I can't remember for overall.
No, I did not. I was going to say D+. I thought, I don't piggybacking off you guys with Bobo. I thought he called an okay game as well. I don't think we really got to see the benefits of it just because of execution issues. So
yeah,
I'm with Bobo. I'm not too concerned quite yet, just because it's still his first year as well. And you were telling me about your conversation with the Georgia fans as well. With them, I'm kind of iffy on their thoughts. I know that's like they're right in saying that's what he does and that's what he's used to. They also had him almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but I don't think we've really gotten to see Bobo call a true game outside of weaker competition that's going to work because of execution issues. And like we've been saying, that's going to take time.
I actually agree with this statement by Robert, and I'm a big Bo fan. Bo is not the type of quarterback that needs to be throwing 30 times a game. On a weird night where things are just flowing with the passing game, yes. But my sweet spot for Bo is like 22 passes. Kind of what I think Stetson Bennett was like 18 for 22 or something like that. I can't remember, but that like was the sweet spot for me, I think personally. Dusty, anything else about the offense you want to share about that you haven't had a chance to talk about?
We kind of personally, I kind of expected that this week.
Yeah.
So this is just for me. Saturday, this is a huge game. You got that bye week coming up.
Yep.
And if you can go in there 5-2, obviously that's a lot better than 4-3. So to me, it's just about this week for us. We knew that was coming.
Yeah, I didn't want to admit it myself, but I kind of felt like that might have been coming. I had hope that there was going to be a little bit more production. And so when I think my final prediction was 23-20 Georgia, I was like, it really is contingent upon Auburn getting the offense going. If they don't, it ended up kind of the differential just kind of spread out even further from that point. I do want to give a shout out to Justin, who's been here on the channel a couple times since Georgia Week started and has been a very reasonable Georgia fan. So kudos to you, Justin. I will say you need to get a few of your fellow fans in check, as I'm sure we all do. Had to get onto a few people for barking excessively at children and at other people they had no business barking at.
You just tell them to
Aaron
sit.
Murray in check.
Yes.
Well, you've got Aaron Murray. We've got Aaron Murray again this week, unfortunately.
I know. I'm gonna mute it and then just let Andy Bertram and the boys take over.
That's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, that it really is. I mean, what's Aaron Murray's deal? Like, I get that we destroyed you a couple of times and we hurt your little feelings, but dude, it's been a decade. Let it go, man. Let it go. Be like Elsa from what's the Frozen and let it go, man. All right.
Salty.
Offense. Dusty, you want to stay with us for at least one or two defense stuff? You got time for that?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do some defensive grades here. You get to pick, Dusty, which unit you want to grade first.
Let's start up front.
Up front with defensive line. Give it to me.
F-.
Ooh, mincing no words. F-. Why, sir?
F-. I know, I began to get worried when like Truesdale transferred and you just kind of started seeing it get thin. But like you talked about earlier, Harsin, if you're not playing, it means something.
Yep.
And I would expect a guy like Lee Hunter to be playing by now. There doesn't seem to be a lot of depth down there. And I mean, I can't really fault the scheme. Like they just got beat. And the first half was cool, but Georgia, you knew what they were going to do. They were going to try to pound you, and they pounded you. They absolutely pounded us in a submission. 4 quarters, we got no pass rush. We let Stetson Bennett just look like Joe Montana or something back there. And you talked about how Auburn fans, we're gonna freak out if we don't see us running the ball enough. Well, my dad, also an Auburn fan, very, very frustrated seeing us getting the ball run on on the fourth quarter, just running the ball down our throat in Jordan Hare Stadium. You get an F minus.
Yeah, I don't think that's unfair at all. I might be a little more forgiving, but F minus, those are good reasons for that. Answer either one of you. Iku Leota, he was the only one that got a sack, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And hey, let's just give the man some props. Pick that man up and sumo plexed him into the ground. I mean, we had a Aaron Murray situation all over again there. And I really thought that was going to be not the turning point, but an emotional turning point in the game, because the crowd got back into it after that. And it was I think it was we got third down on that one. And it was very much needed, a response by the defense, and the offense just couldn't respond back. Austin, what say you about defensive line?
Yeah, I had him as a D plus. A lot of the D plus and C minus. I had a lot of the things Dusty mentioned. I knew, we knew Georgia was going to try and run and wear us down. I thought they responded better in the first half than I expected. I thought that it would be much more like the second half throughout the whole game. So I have to give them a little bit of credit for that first half, but I mean, it was their first drive out of halftime. The defensive line was tired. It showed, and they took over. Yeah, you mentioned I had Ikuliota only quarterback hurry was from Smoke Monday, who's not on the defensive line and did not play for very long.
Yeah.
I had it as a C minus D plus, so right in there at the top of the D range, but not great. But I didn't expect very much.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm a little bit more forgiving than Dusty, but not that much. It's just a F plus for me, and really it's because of the one Iku Leota play, and it really, what killed it for me was just letting Stetson Bennett back there and have time to throw way too often, and the way we were just getting run over in the fourth quarter. That honestly, if that hadn't happened and we were still fighting like we should have been in the fourth quarter, just to keep it even more respectable, that probably would have pushed it up to like a D plus to me, because they were up against a really big challenge. But after that, I'm like, I've lost my forgiving nature. Go ahead, Austin.
Sure.
You got them.
My only thing with that is I think everyone knew coming in, our game plan was to make sure they do not run and to let Stetson Bennett be the one who has to beat us. If he beats us, he beats us.
Yeah.
And he did. I really think he did. Like Dusty and you and I have mentioned, we had the run game down. And so I think that probably some of those adjustments were made to, okay, he is executing, so let's try and get after him, and it opened up the run. So I think unfortunately, sometimes, and that's just what happens in football, sometimes the other guy just beats you up and wins. And I think they won their matchups, especially Stetson Bennett, through making throws I didn't think he could make as when he had to.
Yeah. Dusty, what you think about defensive backs? I know I'm skipping kind of over linebackers. We'll come back to them. There's a reason for that. I think there's the most to say about that unit. So I want to give you an opportunity to do that while you're here. So defensive backs, what's your grade look like?
F plus.
F plus. Slightly more forgiving.
The only reason you're not getting an F minus is because Smoke Monday got kicked out. So I guess I'll give you that. And my deal with that is, I get it. That was targeting. I'm not complaining about that. It's just, I see everyone, the analysts, the announcers, the fans, everyone agrees that has to be changed to where, okay, it's a penalty, but the guy shouldn't get kicked out the game. I mean, that our two biggest games, we've had guys kicked out, and everyone knows how bad the first one was. So that's got to be changed. But defensive backs, man, I mean, you saw it. Like we talked about, football's a combined effort. So the D line not getting pressure, that plays into it, obviously.
Right.
And McCreary, that's not a pass interference. That guy's 6'7" or what? I mean, that guy's humongous. Like he's a beast. That's not pass interference. And if that is pass interference, the Bo's right. Call it the other way down there in the end zone.
Yes, sir.
But other than that, man, we got beat. And I've been on Mason about the zone. he manned up and we just got beat. And that's one area where I know those guys are talented and there's a lot of them, and I just expect more.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, Dusty. I think, we expect more out of them, and then they did some of the things we've been wanting them to do, but then you see that whether it's just because it was Georgia or if that's actually why they haven't done in the past, that we're not good at that or something like that. We were trying to have a more balanced approach where you do a little bit of zone, a little bit of man, and maybe we're trying to work on zone more. Defensive backs for me, we knew that was probably the weakest point of the defense. After Georgia, not so certain, but it probably is still the weakest point. There's, I posted this question from, Anthony was asking about Simpson starting over Pritchett. Pritchett got picked on a lot, and they knew you don't throw over to Roger McCreary unless you've got the right matchup or the right, situation, because that's McCreary Island over there. It takes a rogue play or a penalty call to actually make any difference over there on his side of the field. And I know Pritchett's he's the other cornerback. Yeah, that's right. I had that right. But they had a few good plays, bombs that really made a difference, and those involved Pritchett a lot. So it's kind of hard for me to really be super negative on him. I'm going to say probably like D+ is what I feel about the defensive backs in this. Again, kind of like Austin was saying earlier, because my expectations were so low, but they still didn't even meet those. Austin, what about you?
Yeah, I had D+ exactly. I think Roger keeps it high, at that high for me, just because he played way above his height and way above his weight against a dude who was way bigger than him. And even when calls didn't go his way, he stepped up. Pritchett got burned bad, ended up being the SEC freshman of the week, and McConkey, I think is his name, which is just
what a name.
How did Auburn not get a guy with a name like Lad McConkey? That sounds exactly right up our alley. Yeah, I mean, that they picked on him, and I think that was really part of the game where the secondary got exposed. And you mentioned it, Kyle. Mason played some man, and I think that was probably one of our best ways to get on this Georgia receiving core. But at the end of the day, like I said, I think execution just was not there. And that's there's nothing you can say about that. That the guys have to be better. If they're not executing, they have no one to blame but themselves.
Well, Dusty, we're going to open up the lines in case one of the other Booster Club members wants to call in, but I appreciate you staying with us for an extended time, sir, and giving us a little bit of your perspectives.
Appreciate you.
Good to see you, man.
Good night.
All right, you as well, Dusty. War Eagle.
Thank you.
All right, we're almost done. Woo, excuse me, I'm all choked up. That's how bad the team was. In all seriousness, though, we got to do linebackers, defense as a whole, and then we'll do special teams. I know we're already past 9. I know a lot of you like to go over War Report. If you do head over that way, please tell them we said hello and War Eagle. And hope you can stay here though with us. Make sure you smash that like button if you happen. We're almost done tonight. I want to keep calling out Justin, because I think he's been very honest and fair about, and been a good sport about the victory here. And I wish Justin was, more representative of his fan base, because he's got some good points and stuff like that. He's trying to give us some encouragement about the situation. I think he feels the lack of, it'll be okay, guys. It'll
making
be okay.
Us feel better.
Hey, it must feel good to be sitting there at number 1, knowing Alabama's not is vulnerable.
That's right.
He's like, we can give out all the condolences. But anyway, let's see here. I'm trying to catch up on some of the comments, but let's go and do linebackers. I think this is another unit that's hard to really, grade fairly. Owen's not there. Chandler was in the top 3 of tackles, as he's been the last couple of times, so he's been stepping up in that stead. I think it's one of those things where you kind of got to look at it like the running backs and say, they're not making too many mistakes, it seems like, but at the same time, why are they not making more of a difference in some areas? And is it because the defensive line is not creating holes for them to get through? That kind of thing. I don't know. What do you think about the linebackers?
I had C+. You mentioned Chandler. He's been stepping up. He was a big reason for them not being lower than they were. But I thought they were just average. They didn't do much to help stop that rushing attack in the second half either. They got picked on, and like you said, Owen's not there. I really thought Owen Papa would be playing this past weekend. That high ankle sprain is nothing to joke about. So I think it's really hurting him. But I really hope we do get to see him come back, because I think he is a big leader for that defense and that linebacker group especially. I love Zacoby McClain, but that you need 2 or 3 linebackers on that field that can man that defense, not just one. And I think it hurt them. So I had C+.
I'm kind of being like the running back situation here, where I feel like we've reached the point where there should be more production out of that. And you know what? I will go C+ with you as well, because of the Owen Pepo situation not being there. And that is, Chandler stepping up. Zacoby in this game, wasn't really all that effective. I mean, he was in the bottom third, I think, of total tackles, which is not like him.
Three tackles. That's it.
3, and he's getting pushing 10 a game. It seems like these days. Right. So I don't know. It's as I've said, it's very similar to the running back situation for me. Just not a lot of impressive stuff coming out of that side either. So overall, Austin, what say you for grading the defense? And the people in the chat can also give their overall grade for the defense now.
Overall for the defense, I had D, just straight D. I didn't give out any Fs in the position groups, but I had just straight D. I thought I keep thinking about the game plan and what we were not led to believe. No one ever told us this is what they were going to do. That'd be dumb,
right?
But where it seemed like that was going to be, let's take away Georgia's strengths without their starting quarterback and see if we can make him beat us, and he did. So for execution standpoint, I give them a D as a group.
Yeah. Dusty is straight across the board. I don't know if you noticed, he was straight across the board Fs. And he
sure was.
He is not. It is not a unfair.
He backed it up. Yeah.
There's not an unfair opinion to say straight Fs. I don't know that like I said, I haven't given them straight Fs. I'm bouncing back and forth between, I think my head wants me to go D-. My heart wants me to go D+. And so I hate to do the cop out and say D, kind of where you were at, because that's kind of boring. But I think that's kind of where I've got to land on this. There is some straight up justification for across the board Fs here. I think they responded to scenarios that kind of keep me from giving them an F. They, made a couple of stops that they needed to, and really there's individual performances that stuck out much more than actual team performances.
Yeah.
So, and Josh kind of breaks it down, maybe what I'm trying to say here. First half a B+, second half an F. And that's kind of where you really get to on this. It kind of almost gets down to the D range for me on that one. So anyway, so that is the defense very briefly here. Special teams. If you just want to give some overall thoughts real quick, Austin, and then your grade.
Yeah, after you asked me about that, do I give any group an A earlier? I've been thinking about it. This is probably where I'd give him an A. Not a lot happened. Anders Carlson hit his lone field goal. I think it was like 25 yards. So yeah, did what he needed to do. I think Oscar Chapman is definitely your starting punter. I think anyone could have figured that out over the past few weeks. We're not seeing really them switching off between him and I can't even remember the other guy. Aiden Marshall. Aiden Marshall. Oscar Chapman's had the punting duty. So, and I think he's done well.
49 points, not as a 49-yard average, I think, right now in that game.
There you go. Yeah, I mean they're not a liability anymore, and I'm still a very big believer in Anders Carlson is as steady and consistent as they come. He's had some rough kicks from far distances recently, but. I mean that's probably where I give them an A, B+, if at the very lowest.
I'm going to say A- because they've set their expectations so high now. It's kind of like, you took care, you made your X point, you made your field goal. Oscar, I think Oscar is our best defender, arguably, of the night, because he put the defense in a situation where they could maybe maximize their potential, but they just didn't take advantage of it. I think that is what plays in this. There was no really wow plays on kick returns, punt returns, coverage, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like an A- for me. Like, you did exceptionally well, but we've seen better from you. So maybe give us a little bit more next time.
Yeah.
I know that may feel like a little bit petty, but that's kind of how I feel. Oscar Chapman had the greatest impact in the game, as super understated. Yes. And that's why we always say here, people try to limit or try to, say we need to get rid of kickoffs and things like that. Like, they win and lose games. Period. Said, over with. And they can be the difference in the game just as much as the running back can.
Yep.
So we have broken down the game. We have graded everybody. Would you like to give an overall grade for the team, considering all those? You got roughly an A for special teams, roughly a D for defense. I think you gave a D.
I think I had offense, and it was bad.
Yeah, it was bad. So what say you?
I'll land somewhere in the D+ range. I just keep going back to, I didn't expect a whole lot. I hate to say that, but I didn't expect a whole lot, and I really hoped it'd be closer, but it wasn't, and it was just bad execution on both sides, whether it was catching balls, defending, getting pressure, opening up holes. It was just bad execution across, and I don't necessarily think that is a sign of things to come. Like, I think this was the biggest test for this Auburn team under a new coaching regime. And they, if you expected them to be ready, I don't know what to tell you, except I'd love to eat some of the sunshine that you're eating too. But they're just not ready. We're not there, and that is part of a coaching change, which we're not going to get into. But Kyle, what is?
Don't get me started.
What is your overall grade, Kyle?
Don't do this to me, Austin. Good, you almost made me say it. Okay. Anyway,
what is your overall grade, Kyle?
I'm gonna say overall, I think my patience is starting to wear a little thin. I'm going to keep it for a little bit, and this should tell you how bad I feel about this game. D-. That's me and nice. And I don't think that there's much that the special teams A can do to mince that on this. But, and I think Dusty has said it, I think some other people say it, and you've already said it too. This is just us talking about one game. Just because we give a very honest and very bad grading for this game doesn't mean we hate this team and we think they're the worst team ever. We see much more potential in them, and that's why we're being a little bit more harsh at this point. I mean, this is the midpoint of the season. And in fact, I'm considering, I want to do a recorded video where I maybe give an overall grading for how we've done this year, kind of taking everything into consideration at this point. But I'm kind of wondering if I shouldn't wait till after the Arkansas game and we actually have that break. So stay tuned for that. Here's what I want to do in the meantime. We're almost done here. I know some of you have asked some other questions. We'll probably talk about those in just a second, but go ahead and get last minute comments, questions, derogatory rebuttal in right now. I want to remind you of a couple of things we've got going on this week and ways to get involved here on the E2C network. If you'd like to help support us, there are links in the chat. You can become a channel member by hitting that join button. You may not see it if you're watching it on an iPhone. Sometimes it's weird. Apple doesn't like them not being able to make money. So it's the easiest thing to do is go to a desktop and hit the join button there. The link's in the description. It's $1 a month. All it takes to help support our content here. There's also the Booster Club. People like Dusty who are there, they got the exclusive link to call in tonight as being part of the Booster Club. That starts at $1 a month as well. And we're trying out some new little fun things on there too. So it's probably a good time to hop in there and at least see, and you won't get charged until the beginning of the month. So technically you can get some stuff for free right now if you want to hop in there and see stuff, but check all those links out in the description. There's TeePublic, PayPal, all that good stuff. Live this Wednesday night, we're going live to talk about Auburn versus Arkansas, preview that, and that will be open calls. Anybody can call in on that show. And then stay tuned the rest of the week for all the podcasts we have coming out, all of the rest of the videos we'll have coming out. It's going to be a fun week, even though it's a little bit down right now. All right, let's do last minute comments, questions, derogatory rebuttals here. Q Wolf says, do we know what Owen's injury is? It must have been pretty bad for him not to put him in against Georgia. Desperately needed him Saturday. It was a high ankle sprain. Isn't that what it was?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, and those are not normal ankle sprains. Those can take a while, unfortunately.
I can speak to that as a former basketball player. That is like the worst kind of ankle sprain. I can't tell you how many times I have rolled my ankle and like done the low ankle sprains, and yeah, they suck, but they're done. You can at least get back out there and run on it. pretty quickly and at least kind of stretch it out and get everything loosened back up. High ankle sprains, that's no joke. No joke whatsoever. I wish Corey says, I wish we could have some of the players in here and grill them. Do you mean grill them, ask them questions? I think that's what he means. I hope you don't mean grill them and say, don't know that you want to grill some of those players if you meant it the other way, but I think I know what he means there. If Kyle wanted an SEC former coach to come here and fix this mess, he would have his hands tied also. Don't really know how to take that. Are you saying because I'd bring Gus back? Yes. Let me just say this. The number of times we got a first down and I'm going, go. And it frustrates me to no end that it takes us. We could have run the ball twice in the time it takes us to run one play after a first down. I'm sorry. I said I wasn't going to do it and I did it anyway. But if you're asking me in a serious format, we need Kevin Steele to get in here and figure this defense out. Did I say that? Let's see. I want to see if we can get better before the year's up. I hope we haven't peaked this year. I don't think we've peaked this year, Kevlar. It's half the season.
If anything, I think that the rest of the SEC should tell you things are wide open right now, and so I would not think that we've peaked, or I would not worry about that too much. A lot of football.
First of all, I got to ask this, Corey. Are you in the Booster Club? Are you under a different name there? Because how did you see the Lens thing? Because that's supposed to be like, Lens is like it's like the stories version of Patreon. That's what I was referring to. We're doing some of this thing. That's some of the things that we're trying out in there that are new features. So how did you see that, sir? I didn't know you were in there. How did I miss you? But yeah, that's what is the Lens thing. It's essentially stories, Facebook, Instagram stories for Patreon. It stays there for 24 hours. Go get Muschamp. I'm done with Muschamp. I'm sorry. Corey.
I don't have time to talk about that.
Corey, hold on. Are you under a different name in there? I've got to figure this out because I thought I know this is like not productive to a conversation whatsoever, but I'm just confused and curious about this. If you are under a different name, I got to know this, Corey. Let's see. We are still in the SEC West title. Yes, we are, folks. I think if anything else, if it had to happen this way, like getting 2 losses this early in the season, that's what you really need to think on is Auburn still has everything. And I do mean everything in front of them, but they've just got to seize the opportunity and make the best of it. So Austin, closing thoughts, anything you want to share before we get out of here tonight?
Not really. I just don't. Auburn family, let's stick in there. It's not the end of the world. It's really not. So we'll hang in there. We got a big game this week against Arkansas. Dusty played on it, but there's a good chance that we could get the offense rolling and find a way. Yes, they put up 51 points, but they gave up 52. And let's hope that we can get some of that point total on the board this weekend. I'll be excited to be back next week, though. I think it'll be a much more positive grading system next week.
I hope so. Sir. Corey, I got your message, and that now I know. I don't know why I didn't put the 2 and 2 together. That's just how busy I've been right now. But by the way, Corey, look for email and some message and stuff that's coming to you. And I know that we have 2 new members of recent that got to get you guys some material, just kind of how to understand and make the best of the Booster Club. So anyway, all that being said, we are happy that you all were here and hung out with us tonight. And I think the best thing we can do is Austin has said, and as Dusty agreed with them, everybody just relax, have fun, and enjoy having Auburn football. Because remember, you almost didn't have it last year. Just be thankful. All right,
hey, we're a month away from basketball. Okay, things are about to be even more fun soon.
It is going to be lots of fun, but we still got a lot of football. And
tons.
We got tons of football. And that's the thing that I think a lot of Auburn fans miss is you need to learn to have what David Housel called the whole of the Auburn experience. And that goes beyond sports. But if you have that and you have an appreciation for things beyond football, beyond basketball, beyond baseball, you are going to these lows are not going to be so heavy on you. They suck. Yeah. I woke up Sunday morning just like everybody's like, I can't believe we lost 5 in a row to Georgia. but then you start thinking about all the other great things that are happening.
That's right.
It's good.
Amen.
Anyway, all right. Enough of us being Pollyannas, because I know people are upset, but we are thankful for you all hanging out with us tonight, and I'm thankful to you, Austin, for putting up with me and keeping me from going off the rails tonight. And
it's always my pleasure.
Yes, sir. And thank you to Dusty for calling in from the Booster Club. Again, check out all those links in the description for ways you can help support or become a channel member or a Booster Club member, and hit that like button on the way out. Till we talk to you guys again, War Eagle, I'll see you Wednesday night. Austin will see you next Monday. See you guys later.